Hello, this is Joel Went. I'm looking at myself. I look very fuzzy haired. I've been thinking about wanting to make a recording of certain thoughts, and I had a hard time getting various objects like cameras and things to work, so I'm just going to use the one on the laptop. Uh, I want to say a few words to people who watch my videos on YouTube about the coronavirus thing. Uh, Probably the most important thing to understand about it is that an event like this, when it occurs in human history, is orchestrated. That is, the conductor of the symphony of all of the different parts and the whole shebang is the Holy Mother. She's in everything. She's rogue weather. She's the four horsemen. She's the gate of death. All of this stuff combines into a set of events we are having right now, which is a plague. And the plague is taking place as part of the symphony of the dying and becoming of Western civilization. Now, in a certain sense, this is a big deal, and I think it'll make a difference to some people to sort of find your personal place, your personal context in the ongoing event. Uh, there's not just a physical virus in the sense of the little bug that seems to be traveling around. There's also a psychological spiritual virus, which is what we might call the pandemonium that ensued when everybody started running around little chicken and I don't know what not. The sky is falling, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. Now, it's hard to understand this in a certain kind of way because our civilization, and especially the leading nations and such, seem so inept in dealing with it. And of course, some do better than others, and we could have a long discussion about what's going to happen. But basically, from a certain point of view, you had a kind of perfect storm that came from the fact that several things happened at the same time. One of which is the general conditions of the failure of systems in Western civilization to be viable. They're too rigid. If you read the stuff on anti-fragility, you'll come to the conclusion that part of what happened once this thing got going was that systems that were basically locked in place, they only did one thing and they didn't do that very well, went on doing that thing and not very well, but they're broken. So the result was that when you watch the news, you don't really learn anything. You're made more afraid. So that's one system that's not working, which is how the news presents itself. Another system that's not working is the politicians themselves. Uh, their basic motivation, whenever they appear before public, is how to have the narrative make them look good. And in a lot of cases, this doesn't mean independent thinking at all. It means going with the flow of the general information that everybody believes and then doing some possibly completely outrageous act to appear to be doing something. And then it is very understandable, but that system too is kind of inflexible. That sort of social system where something happens and the politicians are supposed to fix it, and the politicians have this way of playing their part and they do what they do, but they don't really understand a lot of stuff, and of course they're reliant in a situation like this on experts, and so then we run into whether the experts really know what they're talking about. So let's kind of start there with the idea of there's this bug going around making everybody sick, and it's going to attack you next, and oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Well, the fact is that's not how health and illness actually works. Um, the basic medical model that we have today is influenced strongly by scientific materialism, so the most important things are matter and what the matter does. And there's not much attention played to the spirit, although a little bit the psychological elements are taken account of. But the problem for materialistic science is the spiritual elements, the ephemera, you might say, which are the most important parts, can't be measured. So you get a guy who's an epidemiologist gets up there and he runs a bunch of possible things that are going to happen based on his statistics, based on the past, and he's going to make a guess about the future. And of course, for his business, for his way of telling the truth of it, he has to make sure that he warned people rather than didn't warn them. So he's driven to kind of saying, oh, yeah, it's going to get really bad. And I'm not saying these people are being mean or terrible. I mean, everybody's sort of playing their role. Everybody's role is to do the thing that they're part of. So natural science is supposed to explain it to us, and the politicians are supposed to figure out what to do with it, and the news is supposed to make everybody overexcited about it. And on the sidelines are various corporations and multinational organizations and all kinds of people who would like to use the whole thing to screw us. And in fact, some of the reasons that we may have it in the first place is because that's what they're about. You know, you read the paranoid conspiracy stuff, you know, 4G and all the rest of that stuff, and you're going to get this picture of this awful stuff done by these awful people, and we're going to be the victims of it all. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Well, the fact is that the situation really is an opportunity. One way to say it is that the way the mother orchestrated all these failure modes of these systems that aren't really working and don't really understand anything anyway, she induced that to produce a timeout. Everybody in the fucking civilization on the world is getting a timeout. Slow down, think about what you're really doing, because, you know, up ahead of you is a big cliff. Now you can call it climate change, you can call it whatever you want, but nobody's thinking very well about it, and so we're going to give everybody a timeout. Now, another aspect of this is that the courses of illnesses are really kind of interesting, particularly colds and flus. They're basically elimination processes. We're already sick and in need of doing things, and because the ego is able to drive the body to do things that are against the body's wisdom, what happens is people exhaust themselves in order to make themselves work when they should just lie down and be sick. So sometimes we get these illnesses, these flus and colds that are strong enough to force us to stop running around. Okay? We live too fast and we do too much and we don't take care of our health very well at all, in spite of all of the things that get said about, you know, good food and stuff. Good health has a lot to do with your attitude as much as anything else. And it actually, well, so basically the question we can ask ourselves, are people really sick of a flu, or is something else happening? Well, the epidemiologist only looks back at the past and he only has a certain amount of data. So let's just take a look at the situation. All right, so why do people get flus and colds? Is because their body says, screw it, dude, I'm not going to let your egoicity keep you going because I'm falling apart. Your body is really wise, and you need to learn. It took me a long time, you know, I'm surviving. I'm into the 80th year, so I made it pretty far, and most people can, but that's the deal. You got to pay attention to your body. Not particularly what somebody tells you online to eat, but what's your body telling you? So when you get the flu or the cold, your body says, lay down, sleep a lot, drink a lot of water, and don't do anything. And sometimes don't even watch TV. Don't bring your mind into activity. Be kind of mindless, you know. A good thing to do would be just look out the door if you had something pretty to look at and watch the clouds go by. But basically, this kind of illness generally is about knocking you out because you need to be knocked down before you're going to get well. So that's one part of the situation we're facing here. Now, of course, we have this organism which is not the same as the usual cold and flu organisms, and there are a lot of people that have a hard time understanding what to do about it, and I can understand, because the scientists don't ask the right questions, or they take the the best questions and they shove them to the side because they don't know how to answer them. So why do people get sick this way? They get sick this way because they're exhausted. They're already exhausted. They need to do certain things, and they're not doing those things, and the body goes, oh my God, and latches on incidentally to an organism. Now, how does it latch on? Well, the fact is that when we get disharmonies, I mean, the ancients had good ways of talking about this, the humors and stuff. If you take the word disease and you put a hyphen between the dis and the ease, disease is a kind of not being at ease with yourself. So we're not at ease with ourselves, we're diseased, and we need to have an illness to correct what we won't do through our own ego forces. So the body knocks us down, kaboom, there you go, you're going to be sick. All right? And this particular organism that shows up, well, the information about it is pretty bizarre. I mean, the basic idea, of what we might call the germ theory of disease is there's this bug. It comes up and it bites you on the ass and gets in your stuff. And that's why you have fevers and throw up and all the rest of this stuff. Well, it's a cart before the horse kind of thinking. Rudolf Steiner, who even his Steiner students haven't figured this out very well, he had a very good way of talking about this. He said, well, if you drove through a healthy area of fields, the grass is green, everything is watered, and in around all that, there's all these cows, and they're hanging out, and they're just happy, you know. Well, ask yourself the question of whether the environment caused the cows to exist, or whether the cows proliferated in the environment because of the way it was. Which is cause and which is result, right? Well, the cause in our inner environment is the dis-ease of our living so fast. And as a consequence of the disharmonies in our inner organism, it becomes a place where it's food for the proliferation of a lot of people who are going to get this particular type of flu. We'll use that as a general name. They've been calling it that, so let's not argue with it. Okay, so where are we? Well, gosh. Okay. If the flu organism isn't the cause, what is going on? Well, part of the problem is the data that's collected by epidemiologists doesn't ask the right questions. And a lot of times, and I just wrote this in my blog based on something that I saw on television recently, which was the latest version of the Bosch detective stories, and his daughter is in a situation where she's enabled to present some material to her boss, and she says, well, what her father taught her was it isn't just looking at what's there, you got to look at what's not there. And sometimes what's not there is the most important thing to notice, okay? So what's not there in the discussion of the illness? Well, a big word begins with S. It's 5 letters long, and it's basically stress. But they can't count it. They can't measure it. They can't give us temperature up your ass and know how much stress you have. But everybody knows everybody's stressed to their gills. And where are the 2 most stressed places in the world? Well, America, which has had to endure a dysfunction at the level of their politics, which is very healthy in a way because it involves the destruction of the political parties, but the Holy Mother, she multitasks on a level we can't even imagine. There's so much stuff going on right now that it's almost hilarious to watch it go down. Anyway, so the politicians, the Republican and Democratic parties weren't working. They needed to fly apart. And of course, Rove came along, and did what he did. But anyway, the result of Rove is a maniac like Trump and the complete absence of truth in political dialogue at all. Well, that makes for dis-ease among the populace. I mean, you've got what? You've got old people being told that once more the Republicans are going to take away their Social Security. You've got young people who are maybe minorities or dreamers or whatever. They were born in America, but they're not legally there, and they're being told they're going to be sent home. And you just go around and you look at everywhere that's been going on since the politicians in Washington decided to go into failure mode in terms of governance. And there's been uptick after uptick of people just getting more diseased and stressed. That makes America a very suitable inner environment for the proliferation of an organism that feeds on the way our inner environment is organized when it's under so much stress. And you say, well, what about China? Okay, well, let's think about China. What was going on in Wuhan, which was the center? Well, you can find all kinds of conspiracy links which think the bug came from Canada, and it's a well, made up bug and everything. I'm saying no. Okay. What happened in China is that China instituted a very intrusive observation system, state observation system. They take pictures of you walking down the street. They use facial recognition software to decide that they know who you are. They can identify where you've been and what you've been up to, and they want you to appear to be happy. Please have a big smile while you're walking down the street, because this is China and the camera's watching you. And if if you show up on somebody's list at the nearest Communist Party guy, he might come by and say, well, Marilyn, where's your smile? And, so that's a lot of stress to put on people who are already stressed, living under a dictatorship that has turned them into the biggest economic engine in the world. So don't you think there's no stressed people in China? What else? They have some of the worst pollution in the world. My gosh, no wonder one of the things that happens with this COVID-19 disease is something in the lungs. Well, is it the organism that's in the lungs, or is it the lungs are already screwed up because of the poisons in the air, right? You're getting the picture here now? The reason that the organism proliferates and becomes apparent is because of stuff done to the physical and social and spiritual organism of the human being by the stupidity of the way civilization is right now. And the mother, who cares about us, unimaginably cares about us. You'd be surprised. She's let us just rip the hell out of her surface organisms, right, all over the planet, and move stuff here and there and blow up atomic bombs and all the rest of it. She's tolerated a lot. And it isn't that she is intolerant of, she loves us and says, well, if you guys can't be wise enough to slow the fuck down, here we are. I'm going to put the brakes on the whole civilization. And of course, the thing that was unexpected was the economic effects, but the result is going to be that the rich and the gap between the rich and the poorest people is going to get worse and more obvious. And those folks are kind of tired of their government not taking care of them, because that's why you're supposed to have one, particularly in America. So this brings to a kind of acute, fiery issue a whole bunch of stuff at the level of the psychology and the spirituality of it, not the physical thing. The physical being is a secondary aspect. It's a secondary product of the spiritual, psychological event, which is so many people so distressed because the people that are supposed to run things and take care of us aren't. The pharmaceutical companies sell us medicines they know are killing us. And the one guy even confesses, well, it's not our business model to make you healthy. A lot of silly and a lot of goofy and a lot of horrible, and the mom comes along and says, whoa. And it's kind of a gentle whoa when you think about it. It's a big whoa. It could have been, in some places, rogue weather. Natural science says, well, it's just a bunch of things happening in the air, and we can measure it, maybe predict it by 3 or 4 days, and da-da-da-da. There's no weather without the mother and the spiritual beings that she guides and provides artistry for. So what? That can't be right. She loves us. Why does she? Okay, so think about just one event, okay? A flood in the middle of America that comes through with a bunch of storms. Well, what actually happens is not just the flood, but the aftermath. Remember, we're looking at the psychospiritual element, not just the mechanical physical element. So after the storm, people are upsettled. They're unsettled. They can no longer continue the routine. They have to do something else. And incidental to that, they need to be taken care of, so they go to these school gyms and these other places, and they spend time with each other, and they meet each other, and they find out that they have common cause with each other, which includes what the fuck is being done to us. And they meet each other, and they realize that in spite of your political persuasion, which is sort of enforced from outside you by people fucking with your mind, that you have more in common with each other than you have with the bosses. So rogue weather was hints of this. Is it going on? You know, the idea of climate change has got some truth to it, but it's still coming out of scientific materialism, which includes the spirit and is never then going to explain a thing. Okay, so what you need is someone like me who is been inducted by the mother into the status of being a white privileged Christian, son of Montana, American citizen, shaman, and professional heretic. Now, the first two are the one important because you generally don't think of white privileged Christians as having a shaman. Well, no, they don't. They have preachers and they have, you know, guys that sell them the latest what you should do, you know, exercise and diet stuff. But the shaman is a horse of a whole other color, especially when the mother sort of comes along. You follow the story of my life. It's kicked me this way, kicked me that. You jump off a cliff. Yeah, I'm fool enough. That looks like an interesting cliff to jump off. But the white privileged Christians needed a shaman because they needed to know about the mother. Science doesn't understand the mother. Okay. If you want to deal with climate change, you want to deal with the mother, how do you deal with the mother? What you have to do is you look outside your window. You know, I have a nice outside window here, right? Let's take the camera, look outside the window, right? I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, a little bit shaky hands, okay. It's a wet day in April. There was actually a little bit of sleet or snow. And here's, of course, the wizard's room full of books, etc. Weird shit. Anyway, so there we go. So whether they want one or not, white privileged Christians have a shaman. It's me. And I'm not the only one, by the way. I'm just, I don't know. Anyway, so that's the story. What's going on here is about the aftermath. So what's the aftermath of the virus? Well, first of all, everybody's, you know, these things that are happening that see, this is the interesting thing about how the divine works. We do things for a stupid reason. We may think it's even a right reason, and it's still a stupid reason. It's not a bad thing that we did it, but because of the multitasking capacities of the divine mystery, there's 14 more reasons why it's a good thing, right? So we have social distances. We run around wearing masks. Here's my mask, you know. I'll put my mask on. My lady girlfriend's daughter made this for me. I haven't been out of the house, but I don't ever go out of the house anyway. Okay. So if you can't read it, it says, I am not a number. Anyway, I had to draw something on it. So let me recap a little bit. The event is designed to put the brakes on Western civilization, to cause a great number of people to have to meet each other instead of just be, you know, in the apartment building and just say hi going in and out the door before they jump into the subway to work for a boss who causes more stress, right? So all that got shut down. And I guess we should talk a little bit about death because, you know, Once you get the understanding of the mother, you understand that we are the children and she's the mother, and when we die, she just takes us in her arms, just like you see in the Pieta, you know. Once you have a spiritual view of things, there's no death. There's an afterlife, and there is dying. You know, and one of the horrible things that's happening right now is because industrial medicine, the kind of medicine that's been forced on us by all the corporations that like to make money off of us, and one of the worst places this happens is America. We deserve it a little bit, but anyway, so there we are, and I just lost my train of thought. Well, what the fuck? Here we are, and there's the disease, and the disease is causing us to stop, but it's not really the disease that's the cause. The disease of the cause is the dis-ease from the stress, because that's the thing that compromises our immune systems more than even too many vaccinations. Oh, the vaccine, that's horrible. They're poisoning us. You know, Big Pharma has probably the biggest, largest, gropiest, horrible publicity outfit in the world, because they make us think all kinds of things about all their products and stuff. It's just a world full of lies. You think lies are coming out of Washington, D.C.? Watch the news, and if in the evening news, you will notice that most of the ads are for medicine for old people. Okay, so there you are. You're getting up in the morning, and you know you got to go out in the world. You can check my website. There's a card. Well, you know, I keep them out here, and then I forget where I put them, and then I forget them, and then I forget them. Okay, here's a big pile. I had myself make a business card. Okay, so I don't know. I'll try and hold it steady. Maybe on my forehead it'll be steadier. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, how about this? We'll do the camcorder thing. Okay, so how's that picture? Is that in focus? TheCollectiveImagination.com. All lowercase, one word. I got the best stuff there. You know. Anyway, so that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Take care of yourself. There's all kinds of stuff on my website that the mother's helped me put together, and all her friends. You want to know the mother? Look outside at nature. That's where we went. That's the point I was making that I lost track of. There isn't anything that doesn't have consciousness in it. Stuff even. It's called the elemental kingdoms. Just because science doesn't know about them, I'm sorry. I got a long essay about the relationship between the four classical elements of antiquity, fire, earth, air, and water, and the four fundamental forces or transformations of physics. Okay, so everything has consciousness. Everything's interconnected at the level of consciousness, even us, although the touch is very light and we have a lot of freedom. But if you want to look out the window, you have to ask yourself, why the fuck does natural science think that this human being is the only entity in the sphere of Earth existence with an interior, sentient self-consciousness? That's bigotry. She's real. There are spirits out there. We used to call them fairy in the underworld. They're waiting for you to come back. They understand that you've had to travel through science and you've got to get back to spirituality. Okay, that's a good thing. You should do that. But you don't approach nature to take it apart. You don't dissect it. You love it. You establish an I and thou relationship. learn to talk to trees, which really involves learning to subdue your own inner consciousness enough of your own eye to listen when you formulate a question that you would like the natural world to provide an answer for. It's just prayer on the level of the earth side of religion. It says a lot of minutes on this. I don't even know whether it's going to upload very well to YouTube because it's so long, but I wanted just to get some things off my chest. I mean, I could get the coronavirus and die. You know, people are dying. One of the reasons people are dying is because they're tired of the stress. They get to the edge. They meet the mother. I was there last January. You are so stressed, especially if you're in the hospital. I'd gone to the hospital. They weren't fixing me. I was getting sicker and sicker. They kept me awake all the time, pummeling me and poking things and sticking things in me. That's industrial medicine, right? That's what we do to these patients who we think are going to die. We put them under more stress without, understanding. It's sort of sad. But anyway, when you're there, when you're ready to die, she's there. Now, people talk about the white light and everything, and that's true. That's one way, and it's sort of one facet of the divine mystery. Another facet is what a friend of mine would call the luminous dark. You feel the warmth of her, the presence of her. When I was ready to die, she was there. I knew she was there because I'd been with her before. And I said, if I want to die, will you take me? And she said, didn't skip a beat. She just said yes. Which I wrote a poem about it because it's an awful kind of freedom to realize at that moment you get to choose. And I think a lot of the people that are dying, these old people that are dying, they got them in nursing homes and other places where they really do not enjoy their life. They sort of exist because the system keeps their body alive, but their minds, And when death comes and says to the still awake part of our spirit, you want a break? They go, oh yeah, I do. So there you go. That's the truth. I said it. Turning the button off.